Chapter 17. Abruptly sitting up in bed again, Jeremy finds himself in a now too familiar situation. Sweating bullets, skin cold and clammy to the touch, and tears raining down both sides of his face. As he clenches his comforter in both hands, he drops his head back against the wall behind him. All he can think about are his dreams and the images he was shown at the police station just days before. After sitting up in bed, he places his feet on the ground and rests his head on his palms for a moment. Standing up, he edges his way over to the window, overlooking the backyard. Pulling on the long, thin white string hanging from the top right section of the shades, they are forced by the pulley device to come together and rise to the top of the window. Jeremy places his forearm on the window and his forehead upon his forearm. His gaze rises up to the moon. Stealing his attention, the moon appears to be the only thing in the sky tonight. That is, until the clouds rush in from the side and Jeremy loses sight of it. A few hours pass and the sun has risen. He sits at the kitchen table watching the small television while slowly shoveling spoonful after spoonful of cereal into his mouth, only halting to take a breath every few seconds or so. His hair lay askew because he has yet to shower, and a dried mixture of sweat and tear residue could still be seen spread across his face if said hair were not in the way. Quietly, his mother walks into the kitchen, still fixing her hair, with bands and clips, preparing for the day to come. "I know it must be hard for you right now, losing your friends and the case and..." She pauses for a moment. "I couldn't imagine what you must be going through," she says as she sits on a chair she places next to him. She gently places her hand on his shoulder in comfort and continues. "I wish I could stay home with you and make sure you're okay, but we can't afford for me to take time off work right now." She takes his hand and strokes it gently. Jeremy quickly pulls his hand away without looking her in the face and places it balled up in his lap. She then pulls her own hands close to her chest, her left hand cupped within her right. With her head lowered away from Jeremy, she takes a deep breath and places both of her hands gently and shakily on the table. "Oh!" She raises her focus to Jeremy's face once again. "I called the school, and they're going to send your work home with somebody." Jeremy's eyes turn toward her, and then he lowers his head. In no way is he going to be able to focus on schoolwork. His mother stands up and leans down to hug him. She wraps her arms snugly around her son. With a firm grip of him, she continues her failing attempt at comfort. "I know it's going to be tough, but I want you to at least try to keep up with your schoolwork while you stay at home." She lets go and fights to hold back her tears as she walks out of the room, away from her suffering son. From the front room, Jeremy can hear her call back with her goodbyes before she closes the front door behind her exit. He hears her, but doesn't really notice because the television has gained all control of his attention. Reaching across the table, he grabs a hold of the remote control for the kitchen's television set. Pointing it at the set, he holds the volume up button on the left side until the small green bars fill the entirety of the bottom section of the television screen. As the volume raises, his eyes are glued to the picture of his teacher, Mr. Sampson, taking up most of the screen. "Another murder in our small town. Early this morning, local high school teacher Aaron Sampson was found dead near..." Jeremy shuts the television off and stares at the blank screen for a few minutes, just looking at the darkened reflection of himself in the kitchen he sits in. "Mr. Sampson? Really? What's going on in this town?" he asks himself as he drops his spoon on the table. Something begins to formulate in his head. The dreams, the people, are they somehow connected? He thinks to himself. He gets up and rushes up to the stairs, stumbling on multiple steps in his hurry. Once he makes it to the peak of the second floor of his house, he rushes down the hall and into his room. He rummages through his book bag until he finds a loose piece of paper and a working pen. Jeremy rushes back downstairs and returns to his seat at the kitchen table. There he sits, and he writes out the list of the dead. Wilt, H.A. Mr. Sampson. Then he thinks about those nightmares he has been having, and he writes down all 4 on the same sheet of paper. He studies the list that he has added to the paper for a few seconds before a sigh of relief escapes him. Calmly he lays the pen and paper down on the tabletop. They don't match. He takes a deep breath and slowly lets it out. I must be going crazy. That doesn't even make any sense. He continues on to himself as he crumbles up the paper and throws it in the short, white plastic garbage can next to the counter. Putting his head down, he closes his eyes. Although he tries to fight it for a moment, the lack of sleep from the night before grips him, and he slowly lets go and drifts off to sleep. Thank you for listening. If you're enjoying the story and how it's going, please subscribe so you can get every chapter as it comes through. Discuss in the comments, plot threads, and where you think the story's going. Share with anybody you think might find it interesting. Until then, I'll see you next video.